We're here, UFC 321, Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane. This should be a fun fight. Hopefully, Tom can pull it off. I mean, the havoc it would cause if Ciryl Gane becomes champion. I don't even want to imagine that reality here. But nonetheless, we are going to have to look at the predictions we got for this card. What are we thinking here? The first thing I got for you guys here is going to be the prospects of the card. We have Jose Miguel Delgado on the left there, who has been a finisher, finishing all of his fights that he's won, has nasty striking. Valter Walker, similar, but the exact opposite, a submission specialist, with his last 3 being via heel hook in the first round, so we shall see if he can continue that streak. Ikram Aliskerov, very good, somehow unranked still. I have no idea, but other than his loss to Robert Whittaker, has looked awesome, has demolished everybody in the first round, specifically the unranked level of UFC opponents he's fought so far. And then Quillan Salkilld, who really showed good grappling in his last fight, but it's his 22nd knockout of Jubilee that really makes his striking intriguing as well. Yong hasn't fought a lot. This is a huge step up for him against Haqparast. We should see if or can he pull it off and really become the next great prospect in that lightweight division. So after that, we got our big veteran names. Of course, we have Rakic, Volkov, and Gane, all of which really, those heavyweight classes, they've been a staple of those top 5, top 10 for the past 5 years. It feels like they've just been there forever. They don't lose to the non-top 5 level opponents, but they also don't win the championship. It's tough. I mean, Rakic fighting against Yuri, fighting against Magomed, just can't pull it off. Volkov, similar story, can't pull it off against Tom Aspinall. And Ciryl Gane, of course, Francis and John Jones, which don't want to say his name, but nonetheless, great fighters, but just can't get over the hump. We should see how they go. But Mackenzie Dern, another fighter who kind of win-loss here, but has somehow made her way into a title shot today. And last but not least, Mario Bautista, who almost I'm going to consider a fan not favorite, the opposite of a fan favorite. Not exactly sure what that would be called, but he has just been hated on for a long time, but people realize he has good skills, and so hopefully he's going to be able to show out against Umar, win or lose, and put on some fun fights. Speaking of fun fights, we have our fan favorites. We already talked about Valter Walker on the left. He should be able to hopefully get another heel hook submission. Kind of hardcore fan favorite here, seeing if he can continue up the ranks, just heel hooking everybody. Moving on, we got Rebecki, who, similar story here, maybe not a casual favorite, but certainly a fan favorite for the hardcores, seeing him go to war after war after war. Really crazy that he's coming back after just a couple months against Chris Duncan. That was a crazy war, one of the fights of the year in my opinion, in the Apex too. Dana, what are you doing putting these guys in the Apex? Whatever. Anyway, besides the point, Chris Barnett, fan favorite for a spinning head kick knockout at heavyweight. No one really saw that coming. Other than that, though, not really a fan favorite, but we'll throw him in there. And Umar, based on his skill level we've shown, a lot of people think he's the only person who can possibly beat Merab. And, throw that Nurmagomedov name value on there, and you got a fan favorite, right? Moving on, fight of the year, we got Ludovit Klein. Oh my gosh. Let's try that again. We have Ludovit Klein. Wow, that was a struggle versus Mateusz Rebecki. And, this should be fun. As I said, lots of wars with these two and fight of the year candidates. So, should be a fun one between the both of them. Now we're moving on to the prelim predictions, which, starting off, we have Jaqueline Imora versus Mizuki. I believe it's Inoue. Amorim, I should say, has been finishing her opponents on the ground, and yes, they have been pretty low levels of UFC competition, but she has been finishing them, which is worth something in WMMA. And Mizuki hasn't fought in the last 2 years, but has shown to be able to grapple with some pretty good people, right? I mean, she has a 5-round split decision against Jandiroba, who is fighting for the title or later on this card. So, I know it's 7 years ago, but she does have that grappling ability, so keep that in mind. But I just don't see it being good enough to beat someone like Amorim, and the striking between these two is irrelevant in my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, the grappling should be pretty dominant from Jaqueline here, and Mizuki just does enough not to get finished because she's very much a veteran of the game at this point. So, yeah, I have Amorim via decision. And our second fight of the night is Azat Maksum versus Mitch Raposo. Maksum has lost his last two against Tagir Ulanbekov and Charles Johnson. Raposo, on the other hand, I don't know how, but this dude has been fighting on pay-per-views his last couple fights for some reason. 302 and 314. Actually, his only 2 UFC fights have been those two. So, yeah, I mean, I guess he must have something on Dana. I don't know. Hunter, somebody, one of those UFC people, UFC brass. But nonetheless, he lost both via split decision. And yes, he fought Andre Lima and Sumudarji, which aren't that bad of losses, but I don't know, man. It's not a good look. And I know Mitch has put up pretty decent fights against about the same level of opponents that Azat Maksum has, but unfortunately for Raposo, I just don't see that finishing of potential that Maksum has shown in his other fights. And so, because of that, I am going to have to go with Azat via a second round knockout TKO. I just see him pressuring and clipping him here. Yeah, unfortunate for Mitch because 3 straight pay-per-view losses isn't great, but what can you do? It also kind of feels like with the betting odds, it's setting up for Azat to do pretty well. Third fight of the night, we got Hamdy Abdelwahab versus Chris Barnett. Hamdy really taking a dive here since he got caught for roids against Dontel Mays, which tells you a lot. If you got to take roids to beat Mays, I mean, boy, you aren't very good, right? He robbed Jamal Puigs, I believe, if I remember right, and lost his last fight to Muhammad Usman, which really terrible look there. I mean, Usman is not that good in the heavyweight division. So, yeah, I don't know. His striking is kind of pitter-patter style, but, he doesn't have the cardio to go with it. So, it's just generally really boring heavyweight slop. And speaking of heavyweight slop, I mean, Chris Barnett isn't much better, but at least he has some, I would call it a little more finishing potential. He's not that much better, but, he can land a big shot here or there and make fights interesting, unlike most of these people. And I like that for him. Unfortunately, Hamdy is just good enough, I think, to blobfest this one up and win a boring striking decision where neither of them have the cardio to make it in the second or third round, but they're both fighting there for some reason. Really just not UFC level here, I feel like, but fan favorites for both of these, I guess. I mean, somebody likes Hamdy. I'm not sure who it is, but yeah. Either that or a Chris Barnett injury decision. That happens seemingly a lot more often than one would think. Yeah. Nonetheless, I'm going with Hamdy via decision. Moving on, we got Jose Miguel Delgado versus Nathaniel Wood. This is a fun fight, I feel like. I don't know. Maybe other people don't believe that, but I think this is fun. Miguel Delgado has finished both of his UFC fights dominantly in striking battles in the first round, and he does even have that finishing potential on the ground if he needs. I mean, 40% of his wins are by submission. So there's that to go to as well. Wood, on the other hand, last beat Morgan Charrier in his last fight. I believe it was in England, if I remember. And he's shown he's pretty good. I mean, he can beat that top 25 level opponents in the featherweight division. Unfortunately for him, he does it by decision a lot. His last 8 fights have gone to decision. And so, I mean, he hasn't had a finish in over 6 years, March 2019. That is not going to go well for him against somebody like Miguel Delgado. And, if Wood can survive, I think he has a decent shot at winning, but no one has been able to survive the striking of Jose Miguel Delgado in the UFC. No one has been able to survive it at all, actually, outside of the UFC. And so I just don't see that going to a decision with the way that Jose will kind of, I'll call it maraud a little forward. He's willing to go forward and really just go at his opponent. And that's all you really need, I feel like, to knock somebody out, especially Nathaniel Wood. I mean, he's good on the back foot, but that's not going to win you fights, right? So I see Delgado continuing his streak. First round knockout. I like this fight for him a lot. Jose should be able to pull this off. Speaking of fights that you should be able to pull off, I mean, Valter Walker should be able to beat Louie Sutherland. Man, we're struggling. Sutherland is an interesting fighter because, he kind of looked huge coming into the heavyweight division, but now he's kind of looking a little more like a blob, as you can see, and I don't know, man. Maybe he's off the roids or something, but he has decent striking and has been able to finish a lot of his fights that way. Walker, other opposite style, been able to heel hook 3 straight people in the UFC. And the way he did it against Kennedy and Zukichu was a little bit of a crazy way, but that makes me have a little more faith that he can pull it off this way. I can see Walker being a little reckless like he was in that Kennedy fight with his takedown entry, and Sutherland can punish him for it, but, it's unranked heavyweights. Makes me not have a lot of faith. I believe a little bit more in Walker's ability to grapple than the ability of Sutherland to actually stop a takedown entry like that. So, I think it's closer than the odds suggest, but they have it correct here. Walker should win. I'm seeing a submission heel hook. Am I going to predict that? Why not? Why not predict it, right? Why not? First round heel hook. Either that or second round RNC. That's my guess. So we're going on. Moving on, we have Abdul Karim El Sawadi versus Mateusz Camilo. Really, all I'm seeing here is both of them are low level, decent grappling for both of them. Not great striking, but Camilo's slightly better striking. Really, I don't even know how this made it on a pay-per-view and this high up above all those other people. But, I see more finishing potential in Camilo, and so that's who I'm going with. He is going to get a 3rd round KO after a war. I'm guessing it's going to be a war. Low level, but war. Moving on, we got Ludovit Klein versus Mateusz Rebecki. Rebecki here, my predicted fight of the night candidate. He should be able to grapple, but he really hasn't in the UFC too much, and so I would love for him to put on a show, but it makes me worried that he's not using his grappling at all. And he did fight 2 months ago for that fight of the year contender against Duncan, so it makes me worried about durability. Klein, on the other hand, flashy striker and lost to Gamrot, which not a bad loss at all, right, in the UFC. But before that, was undefeated in his last 7, winning striking battles against Ignacio Bahamondes and Mason Jones. I mean, those are looking like great wins currently. And so he can strike really great with any style. And decent grappling, can kind of make it out. I mean, you saw that against Gamrot. Not going to survive, or not going to survive and thrive, but he will survive. He just has the grappling, to make it through, not to do it offensively. And so, should Rebecki choose to grapple Klein, I think he has a good shot at winning this, but unfortunately, Rebecki has not shown to be too smart about that, and that he will just put on a fight for the crowd, which is great. I love it, but not going to go Rebecki's way. And because of that, Klein's very flashy, fun striking style should be better, fresher, and just overall win that style of striking battle via decision. I don't think either fighter has really shown to be finishable at this point in their career, at least. So, yeah, I have Klein probably winning a 29-28 decision. Should be close, but hey, man, I have him winning. Moving on, Ikram Aliskerov versus Jin Young Park. I don't know why I forgot the end. Whatever. Moving on. Ikram really has starched everybody in his UFC and Contender Series wins in the first round, other than Robert Whittaker, of course. And although he hasn't shown it too much in the UFC, he has been able to kind of submit a lot of his opponents. I mean, he has 5 submission victories to his name, so it suggests he only has decent grappling at worst and great grappling at best, right? And Park, as everyone knows, he is a grappler, with most of his grappling victories coming via rear naked chokes. So I don't know, man. That doesn't bode well for Park, especially with somebody as dangerous on the feet as Ikram Aliskerov. Now, there is some MMA math here that suggests that Ikram should win, as he beat Muniz fairly easily, as Park could not. But I don't know, man. The reasoning doesn't align, but I can agree that Ikram should beat Park here. Park probably won't be able to out-grapple, or he couldn't out-grapple Muniz. I see Ikram being able to handle it fairly easily, and certainly be able to win with his striking. And so, again, unfortunately for Park, I'm seeing Ikram do well here and win via a first-round KO again. And can they please put this dude in the rankings? I mean, you can either just put him up there or start him against some other people. I don't know. But nonetheless, Ikram should be facing ranked opponents soon here. Moving on to the main prelim fight of the night. We are looking at Nasrat Haqparast versus Quillan Salkilld. Haqparast, very quietly, has been on a 5-fight winning streak in the UFC, and he has beaten some pretty good unranked lightweights. I mean, you see Rafa Garcia, Jared Gordon, Esteban Rivovic, all good fighters. He likes to strike a lot, and he has good volume. And Salkilld, on the other hand, very good overall fighter with decent striking, I'll say, but very good grappling. He has great job putting in control positions and striking well enough to back that up. Really, what this comes down to for me is that Haqparast has a lot of volume, and we kind of saw Salkilld gas at the end of his Ajmus fight. And I know it was mainly grappling, so it's a different kind of cardio, but it happened. And if it comes down to it, I don't like Salkilld doing very well to stop that pressure and volume that Haqparast has at the end of fights. And the grappling certainly won't be able to do anything at the end of the fight when he's gassed like that. And that'll put up some bad visuals. I'm thinking shades of Ian Gary versus Carlos Prates round 5, where it's just, boy, that did not look good for Ian Gary, but he survives. And, is it going to be that way? I don't know. Is he going to be able to out grapple Haqparast? I just see Haqparast having fought too high level of opponents to lose to somebody like Salkilld at this point in his career. I know Salkilld has a lot of hype behind him. I would love for him to win, but I just see Haqparast being able to volume his way out of this and just make Salkilld really not be able to get effective grappling off here. Cardio goes down and it's just downhill from there. So Haqparast via a 30-27 volume decision. I think Salkilld could probably steal around if he can get the takedown and get on top. He's great with those control positions, but I don't know if he can do that for 3 rounds. It should be interesting. I know he's been in a couple 5-round fights, so yeah, I don't know. Something to keep in mind, but the cardio looked bad in his last one, and this one's semi-short notice, I feel like. So moving on, we have the main card predictions for the UFC 321. Yeah, let's get into it, man. Rakic versus Mirzakhanov. Rakic is a good fighter. First of all, he's not 15-0. I believe he's 14-5. So let's get that right. Nonetheless, he's a good fighter, but he's lost a lot recently, especially in this division. Obviously, all 3 losses, Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prohaskov, and what is it? His name is Magomed Ankalaev. All former champions, so not too bad, but yeah, I don't know. Not what you want to see going into a fight against an up-and-coming, high, heavy striking fighter like that. But Rakic is a good a good striker, so keep that in mind. Number 7 ranked there. Mirzakhanov, Azat, number 10 ranked currently. And he's pretty much the opposite. I mean, he's won all his fights pretty easily by finish, a lot of them, but he's faced much lower levels of opponents. He's fought Dustin Jacoby, Alonzo Metafield, which are around, I'd feel like, that top 15 range of light heavyweight. But that's just certainly not on the level of the opponents that Rakic has faced here. So, I don't like that it seems for Mirzakhanov to take a little bit to get into these fights, right? He kind of builds a little bit, which works a lot, but in a 3-round fight, it's something to think about here. He starts really slow. He did not look great against Ribeiro in his last fight, but he ended up finding that shot and just one is all it took, right? But unfortunately, I think people aren't noticing that Rakic has a 6-inch height advantage and 6-inch reach advantage, which huge. You should be able to keep Azat at range much easier than the average opponent. And unfortunately, with his experiences he's had against those high-level opponents, I think he can use that to beat somebody like Mirzakhanov. And yeah, man, I didn't like Azat's last fight against Ribeiro. He looked really, really tentative for my liking. It looked like he was going to lose the round, basically, in my opinion, until he landed that shot. And Rakic is good, man. I know he's lost a lot recently, but he's good. And he won't really have to worry about getting in range and landing devastating shots. He can just pick at range and do his thing. Don't have to worry too much. And unfortunately, I see Mirzakhanov not being able to get there. So it's hard to choose Rakic because he does lose, but I think this is a decent matchup for him. And so I am going with Rakic via a decision. I have slightly better odds for him. I don't feel great. I do think because Mirzakhanov can just hit that one hit on Rakic and knock him out, that it could happen, but I'm going Rakic. I trust him. I trust him against this level of opponent. Moving on, I believe this is going to be the number 1 contender fight for the heavyweight division. We have Alexander Volkov versus Jailton Almeida. Volkov, seemingly the heavyweight gatekeeper to the championship. The people who have beaten him have had great success in the decision. People who can't, obviously, just aren't of that caliber. Now, his loss to Ciryl Gane in his last fight is a robbery in my opinion. But before that, he had 4 straight wins, and he was doing it kind of all over the place. He was able to kind of outpoint strike a Pavlovich, out grapple a couple of his opponents. I forget who he had. I believe it was like an Ezekiel choke or something crazy. Yeah, I think I remember Laura Sankos going off on that, but Anyway, besides the point, he's a versatile fighter. He can win in a lot of different ways, and his last loss isn't truly a loss in my opinion, or at least certainly debatable. Jailton Almeida, on the other hand, really the opposite. He's been shown to be very one-sided, very dominant grappler in this division, and he's been able to kind of use that to go win. He's won a lot, but he also has good power. As you can see in his Spivak fight, he was able to kind of knock around Spivak. So decent striking too. Really what this comes down to, in my opinion, is Volkov being able to stop the takedowns of Almeida. I think once Almeida gets on top, he's great keeping control, but can Volkov avoid those positions? I'm thinking maybe. He is taller. He has fought great grapplers before, but I think Almeida has that chain wrestling that he might, shoot a shot at the ankle, but build it up to the knee, get the body lock, trip out Volkov against the fence. And, that's just something that Volkov doesn't have that level to, right? We saw Almeida. He kind of did it to Derek Lewis, where he kind of laid and prayed a little bit, even blades a little bit, but he was able to continue the wrestling exchanges even after I would consider a failed takedown attempt. And so, although it is a close fight, I just see Almeida's grappling really winning him this fight. And, I see it similar to the level of Tom Aspinall, and he was able to finish Volkov, yes, 3 years ago in the first round, but I don't know. I just don't see the improvement from Volkov on the ground that much. It has been better, don't get me wrong, and he certainly could win this, but I have Almeida winning via a decision here. Yeah, I don't know. Those are just my odds, and I also like Almeida's finishing potential a little bit more. I just don't think Volkov can finish Almeida on the feet. And if it goes to grappling, I don't trust Volkov to be able to finish it there either. So, moving on. Very, very interesting fight, the feature fight here. We have Umar Nurmagomedov versus Mario Bautista. And this is a very interesting fight in the bantamweight division. I really think if Umar wins or Mario Bautista wins, they are pretty much the next person who will be facing Merab. And they're each trying to thwart each other's attempts here. So Umar really won all of his fights outside of that Merab fight in pretty dominant style. He's able to outstrike Corey Sandhagen and outgrapple many people earlier on in his career. He's not, in my eyes at least, he's not the typical Dagestani where he has mostly grappling for him to his path to victory. Here he can kind of outstrike people as well. He's pretty great in both areas. I don't know why the microphone ran away from me there. I'm going to hold it. Yeah. Umar, pretty good both in striking and grappling. Mario, same kind of deal here. He's on an 8-fight winning streak, so a lot of wins there. Pretty hated overall, but yeah, can do it in a smart manner, right? He was grappling Jose Aldo. We call it grappling because he was cage hugging him. But he can also outstrike somebody like Patchy Mix, which, looking at it now, not that great of a win, but, nonetheless, pretty good. So, Bautista, man, good overall fighter, very smart technical fighter here. He really, what does this come down to, right? Umar should technically be better or as good as Mario really anywhere this fight goes. And if Mario wants to win, he's going to have to do the intangibles, be that cardio machine similar to what Merab did, and make Umar think about his actions. I don't know if Mario can pull that off. He is very elusive in the striking and can be very fast. And if he leads the dance here, where he's first every time, I think it could be a good way for him to win striking exchanges and win a lot of moments. But I don't know if he's going to be able to keep that up for 3 rounds. It is 3 rounds as well. So that's something to keep in mind because Umar might not gas so easily there. The grappling, very, very interesting as well, because Mario is good, but we generally don't see him on the defensive here. So if Umar shoots a takedown, that should really show us what level these guys are. I do think Mario should be able to survive, but it might get a little dicey there as well. So, the odds make it seem like this isn't a close fight, seeing as Umar is somehow a minus 600 favorite. But I really think Mario has a shot at this. It's a 3-round fight, so I know it favors Umar not gassing, but Mario is elusive, and he can use the fight being shorter to his advantage to really show off that volume and give the judges some more to think about. So it goes both ways there. And I know that ultimately it comes down to the fact that Umar has a higher skill level, and I can trust him to finish a fight a little bit more than I can trust Bautista. And it's that combination of finishing potential and skill level that unfortunately forces me to predict a Umar Nurmagomedov decision victory. I just can't trust either of these guys to finish each other. And with that being the case, the skill level of Nurmagomedov has been shown to be slightly better, at least currently, in my opinion. Moving on, our first title fight. Man, we've been looking for a title fight recently, and unfortunately, this is one of them. We're going to have to see Zhang Weili vacates her belt, and we get John Jaroba versus Dern. What is the UFC thinking here? They're praying Dern wins, I think. That's my guess. But, yeah. What do we got on this fight? It's a rematch. People didn't know. 5 years ago, not that much. If you think about it, 2020. But both have improved since then and generally have a similar style, right? John Jaroba, mostly a grappler, but she does have a weirdly high amount of finishes, 64% submission rate. That's pretty good, but as we've seen recently in her fights against these higher level opponents, she can't pull it off and has 5 of her last 6 being via a unanimous, pretty boring decision. Now, I really got to mention this because it does matter. She might be the most or least promotable fighter on the roster. So I think they're really hoping she loses, as she has previously against Dern. But it is something to keep in mind that they might be, I wouldn't say pushing her towards a loss, but hoping she loses here. Speaking of losses, Mackenzie Dern, although she's mainly a grappler, she's 3-3 in her last 6 and hasn't been on a roll like Virna, who has a 5-fight winning streak. So, Dern has shown to be at that skill level of Jandiroba in the grappling, but Virna has become somewhat of a marauder, in my opinion. She kind of forces her will against her opponents, and Dern has shown to kind of just allow people to do that in 5 rounds. Really makes it not easy for me to choose Dern. She has done poorly against people who kind of force her will against her. And I just see this grappling mostly being neutralized through both, leading to a lot of lay and pray from either fighter. It is an interesting matchup, but unfortunately, it will probably not be an interesting fight. And I gotta go with Virna because of that. I don't see finishing potential from either, but if I'm even gonna keep that in mind, I'm going with Jandiroba. And her winning via 49-46 decision for the belt. Yeah, man, I just don't like this fight at all for either person. I would pick Dern if she had won more recently against Jandiroba, but Dern hasn't looked great, in my opinion, in the last couple. And yeah, I think they're just praying for her to win. The UFC, I should say. But we shall see. Moving on, we have the heavyweight championship of the world, Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane. Tom, ultimate heavyweight finisher. He has finished all of his fights via finish with his only loss in the UFC via injury, so it doesn't even really count, right? Recently, he's been destroying everyone with explosive striking in the first couple of minutes, but early on in his UFC career, he had wins against Volkov and Arlovsky that were good grappling finishes, submissions. So, yeah, he's well-rounded and should be able to do well against anyone, anywhere in the heavyweight division. And Gane is kind of the opposite of that. He's mostly a striker who likes to punch at range and don't finish people. He has 5 of his 12 UFC fights going to the decision. That includes that lower heavyweight ranking people. That's not great, right? Half of his fights in the UFC basically going to decision. Not awesome. He is fast and he has a good technique, so that's always going to be good for him. He is athletic as well, but unfortunately he seems to not have the fight IQ and or the grappling to deal with the heavyweight greats. He got out-grappled by Francis and John Jones, which aren't bad losses, really, but that just shows he's not that top level like Aspinall has shown. And if Tom grapples, this should be a fairly easy fight for him to win. He's pretty much clearly better than Gane on the ground and should be able to submit him with relative ease. I know Gane is a little tricky with the submission attempts off his back, but recently it's looked pretty easy to avoid, especially if you watch that Volkov fight. I mean, not too difficult for Volkov to control Ciryl on the ground. And, if they decide to strike, it will be a little more interesting. This is kind of, where Ciryl Gane is fast and might be able to, I wouldn't say outspeed Aspinall, but just keep up with that speed and not get hit with those destructive strikes. But, Tom does have that destructive power, and Gane has been able to show he can avoid it. So with the way Tom Aspinall exits striking exchanges with his chin up in the air, I don't love it. But because he's so dangerous, I doubt Gane will try to stay in the pocket in these exchanges, and that'll probably lead to Tom Aspinall winning the striking as well. And, there's a reason that Tom Aspinall is a big favorite. The striking's fairly even, probably with higher finishing potential on Tom's side there. And the grappling really shouldn't be close, so in the end it makes it pretty easy pick to choose Tom. It's really just the method. Are we going to see him fight for a little bit longer? Are we going to see him Gane survive? I'm thinking so. I'm thinking Gane puts up a decent battle where he kind of begins the first couple minutes striking, and he's able to hit Aspinall with some strikes, not great, but some, but he gets taken down but survives that first round. He doesn't get submitted, and second round starts. Tom throws an overhand in the second and just clobbers Gane, able to follow up with some ground and pound and get that second round finish. Gane, man, he's good, but he doesn't have that X factor, in my opinion. And Aspinall does. I give it a lot closer odds, though, than one would think, as Gane, he's a good striker. He can land, and he's decent at grappling. He's not terrible. I mean, he is pretty terrible, but he's not completely lost. He can pull something off, I feel like, if he really chooses to. So, yeah, that's what I got. Moving on, betting notes. What do we got here? Generally, we just want to see 92% of over minus 500 favorites win. So somebody like Umar has 92% chance in this way of winning a fight, which is pretty good odds, I'd say. Same thing, but just for minus 300 odds, pretty similar. I mean, 84%. If you got big odds on the fight, I would probably mostly pick the big favorite there. They're just winning a lot recently. 84%. I mean, that's gotta be, I haven't done the math, but that's gotta be higher than what the minus 300 odds suggest. So yeah, I believe that's like 75% or something. And 84 is obviously greater than 75. Nonetheless, moving on. Underdog submission rate. We got a couple of underdogs here, and they're decent grapplers. Somebody like Mackenzie Dern. Not Dern, I mean Jandiroba, who's an underdog here. They tend to not win via submission, as you can see. 17%, not that great of a percentage winning. If you win, it's 17% submission. A lot of the time it's via decision or via a knockout. And so I wouldn't bet on that if I were you. And finally, decisions are less common in the 205 or greater weight classes. We have 4, I believe, of them in the main card alone. Let me count. 3 of them in the main card alone. Of course, we have the Valter Walker fight, a bunch of other ones. Anyway, besides the point, a lot of heavy fights, and they don't go to decision. I would predict a little more knockouts in those, or submissions if you want to go for that. But I would predict that in the heavier weight classes here. Moving on, parlays. If you want to parlay all the big favorites here, minus 300 or more, you're winning $250. If you want to parlay everybody, there are a lot of close fights as well, and you're winning over $10,000 if you choose all the correct fighters. That's great money there. So, yeah, if you were confident on anybody, I'd be confident on Azat Maksum. This looks like a layup for him. Otherwise, I don't have anyone I'm super confident in like that. I was thinking about picking somebody else like Tom Aspinall, but I just see paths to victory for other fighters, and that's why I can't put him on the confident list, unfortunately. So that is that one. Moving on, final couple things here. We have some statistical analysis. So if we just go to our next one, we can see the fight efficiency versus fight potential here of a bunch of the fighters. I didn't add all of them because who cares about what, Jaqueline and Amorim can do. Really all we want to see are the outliers who could possibly, have a reason why we won't choose them. And you can see Tom Aspinall here. A lot of finishing potential, very efficient, meaning he hits and doesn't get hit a lot. That's what we're looking for with the finishing potential. He should be able to win. Dern, on the other hand, can't finish a fight very much. Not very good at not getting hit. Makes me feel a little better about choosing the underdog Jandiroba here. Then we have our offense versus defense. As you can see, somebody like Tom Aspinall in that upper right quadrant there, doing great offensively, just dominant more than anyone else we see on here, and defensively able to keep himself fairly safe, not getting hit. Other ones we see here, Nasrat, Haqparast, very defensive, very good at not getting hit, which really, makes it a little worrying for somebody like Salkilld who's trying to finish a fight. You got to get to the grappling for his path to victory mostly then. We see Ikram Aliskerov, same thing as Tom Aspinall, just a little less dominant, but should be able to win that fight that way pretty easily in my opinion against Park. And finally, the last two we see are pretty much outliers here is Mackenzie Dern. Again, not the best offensive and defensive output here, unfortunately. Makes me feel like she's just not going to be able to strike very well against Jandiroba and Almeida, who has good offense, but unfortunately has bad defense. So if Volkov can keep this at range and kind of pick and prod, he should have a path to victory that I like for him there. And finally, we have our statistical analysis about durability versus pace and volume. Really what we're looking for is that Haqparast doesn't put on as much of a pace as one would think, although he lands a lot of strikes like that. So Salkilld might be able to do better, and you can see Salkilld on that right side, pretty durable, right? At least slightly below average durability here. But his volume and pace should be able to keep up with Haqparast. Maybe because of that, you can see him shooting those 1,000,000 takedowns and doing well still, right? So maybe the pace isn't so much of a question in Salkilld versus Haqparast. Maybe I'll go with Salkilld now. I won't, but it's something to keep in mind, right? Similar stories for Aliskerov, Delgado, and Aspinall. You know, very fast-paced fighters. If you can get him past the first round, which no one has been able to really do, that's where fights really get interesting. And somebody like Nathaniel Wood, who's at the second top there for durability, if he can make it past that first round, that should get interesting. And then final two that kind of stand out are Valter Walker and Almeida. You know, they aren't super durable. Just something to keep in mind. You know, they're heavyweights, so anyone can finish a fight, and could be a reason why they lose. So, yeah, last real thing I got really is the card review. Card's a 6 out of 10 in my opinion. Pretty good overall, but the prelims lack a little bit, which is why it gets that rating. It has 3 out of 10 big fights. I believe it's like 4 or 5 big fights there out of 14. 13 now. I think one of them got canceled, so not too bad. Overall, my predictions, not too bad. 70% about. And yeah, UFC 321 predictions. Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you like this video, give it a like. Otherwise, I will see you guys later. Peace out.